I bought this GR Supra at auction, sight unseen, over 10 months ago. And man, did I grossly underestimate how much frame damage it had. I thought I was just going to chop the frame rails off in front of the strut tower and just weld some new ones on. But the entire frame in front of the firewall and the entire side of the car had to get chopped off, which was quite a learning experience for my first frame repair. After that, we had a chassis that was repaired, but many different colors. So just like the frame repair, I decided to learn how to paint on this GR Supra chassis. And that is finally where we are today, a repaired and painted GR Supra. I've been dreaming of putting this GR Supra back together for months, but looking at all of these parts on the ground is a little anxiety inducing. To alleviate some of that anxiety, we just have to do things in bite-sized pieces. So the first thing that goes back into the car is the wire harness. The wire harness is literally snaked through the entire chassis. So I feel like if we can get it back in its home, it'll be a really good start to our situation. However, I ended the last video showing you guys a painted chassis, but we're not quite done yet. I need to paint the bottom of the car and spray cavity wax in every new piece of frame we installed. Both of those are just for rust prevention, but it doesn't sound too fun to watch. So instead, here is a nice before and after on the bottom of the car, and here's a nice little clip of me spraying cavity wax. So now that we're actually ready to start putting this car together, we need to get the wire harness in. However, in the wreck, the wire harness was literally chopped into little pieces on both the front and the back of the car. So I bought a used chassis harness, but I didn't think about the part where maybe the GR Supra that it came off of didn't have all of the same options that mine does. For instance, my Supra has a heads-up display, keyless entry, and it has the front radar sensor for cruise control. So before we start putting the wire harness back in the car, we need to lay out the original and lay out the used one and compare the two to make sure they have all of the right plugs in all of the right places. Alright, well here's the entire used wire harness that I bought off eBay. I noticed over there's one wire harness that was either cut off in an accident, and then there's one plug that was not on the wire. I have not looked through this wire harness to see where those wires go. Instead, I'm just gonna kind of compact this up a little bit more and get our wire harness out. And then we can start to compare, and I'm gonna compare them branch by branch. So I'm gonna start with where it attaches to the firewall, follow it out one side of the frame rail, follow it out the other side of the frame rail, and just compare each section one at a time. Okay, and after comparing the wire harnesses, I think they are the same. Another thing I learned, the wire harness I bought did not actually come with all of the wires. There are some sub harnesses inside of the car that the used one did not come with, but it's okay, the ones inside the car on my harness are the ones that are good. Long story short, it's a good thing about the used harness, it's gonna work, and it has a lot of the wires that we're missing. Now I've been looking through a lot of photos to make sure I know the routing, so I'm not just kind of tossing wires in willy-nilly. And while I was looking at pictures, one thing I noticed is that we have a lot of sound deadening that we have to put on before the wires. So I was wrong, the wire harness is not the first thing that goes on, sound deadening is. Now let's take one last look at our super clean, completely disassembled interior, because I'm gonna start crawling in and out of this thing, and it's gonna get dirty pretty quick. And I'm super happy to say that the reassembly has begun. We have the sound deadening on the firewall, a couple pieces of sound deadening on the floor, and now with the sound deadening in, we can actually start putting in the wire harness. So let's mount our body control module, and then we can start getting all of the wires inside of the car. I want to get the sections of the harness that go through the firewall situated first to keep everything nice, tidy, and tangle-free on the inside. So we do one side, then work our way up over the transmission tunnel to the other hole in the firewall to get that section routed too. Then we have some wires that go up the A-pillar and a couple modules that go in the driver's side footwell. Oddly enough, some wires go back across the firewall to the other side again, instead of them being in the main plastic pieces to begin with. Then to wrap up the driver's side, we can route the rest of the harness towards the back under the door jamb. Back to the right side, I had to remove the body control module to get the wires that go to the door routed correctly. Then we can route the rest of the loom towards the back just like we did to the left side. Next we have some wires that go out the right side wheel well. These wires will go to the brakes, suspension, the gas tank, and the rear subframe. But first we need to mount the main power wire that goes from the battery all the way to the front of the car. Then we can route the other wires over the top. Back on the inside, there's one plug that goes out a separate hole to the gas filler door, and the rest go along the fender to the back. We have a big fuse box in this back corner, along with a distribution block for more power wires that come off the battery. In that same corner is where the wires for the rear bumper come out too. Now back to the left side, these sections are mainly related to the sound system. It has wires that go to the subwoofers, an amplifier, speakers, and some other modules too. Also, a little section goes up to the hatch, and the final section goes out the other wheel well for things like the brakes and the suspension. Okay, all of the wiring is routed. Now before we continue, I find that I am digging through this giant parts pile more than I'm actually assembling, so I'm kicking the Chevelle out of the shop and I'm going to organize the parts into 3 categories: interior, body, and everything else like suspension, brakes, and drivetrain. So let's go ahead and put the old wire harness in a box, put it in the corner. We might need it later if I find another plug is broken, and then I can start organizing this mess. All right, well, I kind of gave up on splitting everything up by categories. I just kind of separated out the entire interior. And once we get more of the interior in, we'll have more room to do more organization. Now, besides that, I did a little bit of wiring off camera. I think you guys saw enough of it. Plus, there'll be more when we start putting the dash in. So I got all of the grounds cleaned off and connected. I got all of the modules in place and plugged in besides the dash ones. So we have done all of the wiring that's possible with how far we've assembled the car. Obviously, if we wanted to do more wiring on the front or the rear, we'd have to start putting on the front half of the car or the rear bumper or the gas tank or the subframe. So to keep making progress on the wiring for the interior, we either need to do the firewall section, the center console section, or the middle section. The center section is going to be the easiest, so that's what we're going to do first. We have 4 safety-related items, a seat belt and a curtain airbag, and obviously we have one on both the driver's side and one of each on the passenger side. So we can get those bolted in and plugged in. Next, for the center section, we have speaker-related stuff. We have a module in the middle, 2 subwoofers, one on each side of that module, and then we have a speaker and a tweeter right next to the seatbelt on each side as well. Once we get those bolted down, we can start routing the wire around it and get them all plugged in as well. Next up is a very exciting piece because it means we're making pretty good progress, and that is the carpet. However, it is filthy. Obviously, we're not going to assemble the car dirty, so everything that's filthy is going to get a nice detailed job before it gets in. So we're going to start with the vacuum, and since this thing is so dirty, we're going to whip out the carpet cleaner to get it extra clean. All right, carpet is clean. I'm going to have to vacuum it again when we're done because I'm gonna just walk on it and get it dirty again. But we did like the deep cleaning now, so we don't have to do it later when it's all cramped on the inside. So happy days, let's get this carpet in its home. Not much to it here. Slide it in place, mat it down, get it nice and secure. And then there is actually one clip that holds this down into place besides all the plastic trim and the seats later. We have this orange circle that connects to this rubber grommet on the bottom of the car. This rubber grommet goes right over the transmission, that's why it's curved here. And actually the heater core and AC system drips right into this hole. And it already looks 10 times better with the carpet in place. Starting to make it look like a car again. God, I just want to keep going. The next thing I want to do is the dash. But before I put the dash in, I want to put the brake pedal on and the hood latch lever. Only because that's how I took it apart. If I put the dash on and it turns out I can't put the brake pedal on, it's gonna have to come out. That's gonna suck. So I want to put the dash in next, but I think I should do the brake pedal first, only because that's how I disassembled it. But before I put the brake pedal on, I want to have the master cylinder in place. But there's some things we have to do on the firewall before we can put the master cylinder on. This is just a giant Lego set and you got to do things in the right order or you're going to have to do it again. So here's what I think we need to do before we put the master cylinder on. We need to mount our wiper motor and our linkages in place. Then we need to organize these wires because 2 of them go through this hole on the bottom. Then there's these 2 tubes for water drainage, I believe. And then there's these 2 plastic filter clip things that go on the bottom. And then we can finally put our master cylinder on. Can't put this on until I get this rubber trim on. Let's do it, why not? We're getting sidetracked, it's fine. Now with that rubber door gasket in place, we can put on our hood latch release. Now that the preliminary stuff is finally done, we can start getting the mass amount of wires that go to the entire dash system in place. First thing up is the heat and the AC system. It has a lot of small plugs that go to all the actuators that control the temperature and where the air is blowing. During this whole dash assembly, you're going to notice me checking my phone a lot. And that's because I took a lot of photos of every wire and the routing of said wire during disassembly, and I couldn't be happier that I did. I definitely wouldn't have remembered the routing, and this would have taken 5 times longer to do without it. After the heating and cooling system is the metal brace. This holds both the heating and cooling system and the dash pad in place, and it has a lot of clips and holes for the wires to be routed nicely. This puppy is bolted to the chassis very thoroughly. 2 big studs with nuts on both sides, 2 bolts close to the front windshield, and a giant bolt through the firewall. And then the heating and cooling system bolted to the brace with a stud with a rubber bushing, and then a bunch of plastic studs throughout as well. After the metal structure is in place, we can plug in and bolt down our heads-up display and our steering column. Okay, new day, new haircut, and all I want to say is things are going so well. I am just so excited to be putting this car together. I can't put it in words. So we have our heating and cooling system in, we have the metal frame for the dash pad, we have our stereo in, our heads-up display is in place and wired, our steering column is in place, I cleaned our dash, I cleaned a lot of stuff off camera as well. I cleaned our steering wheel, a lot of the trim pieces. I cleaned the climate control, the vents, the AC and heat controls. I just did a lot of cleaning off camera. Finally though, we are ready to put the actual dash into the Supra, and it's gonna start looking so good, so quick. Once we get the dash in, and then I can put the subwoofer like carpet cover over, and then the center console, it's gonna be, I can't wait. I cannot contain myself any longer. I'm going to put this dash pad in. There's a lot of screws in a lot of hidden places. I have the screws just in a bag. I know what screws go on the dash, but I don't know where they go, so it might take me a little bit. And while I'm bolting this dash pad back into the car, I gotta make sure the wires are also in the correct place. Dash is in. Let's continue to assemble it. 2 speakers in the center and a screen. There's a little plastic bezel that clips in for the heads-up display. And then we can plug in and mount our cluster. After that, we can get our stocks and our clamshell on for our steering. Now with our steering stocks and our clamshell in place and the back half of the dash assembled, we can start putting in our vents, our stereo control, and on the other side, another vent and a light control. All right, turns out I actually got to do the glove box before the stereo controls. All I have to say is, wow, this is starting to look good. I want to show you guys before and after shots of this so bad, but obviously we need the entire interior fully assembled before we can do that. The state of the interior when I first got this car was crazy, and I can't wait to show you it. For now, here's our like 90% assembled dash. Next up, we need to cover our subwoofers and get our center console in. Okay, now before we can put the center console in, we gotta put this on. And this just slides, so that just slides back and down, and then there's 2 plastic nuts up here. Now I'm super excited for the center console, but I want to point something out to you, see if I can get an answer. I, for the life of me, could not find anything online of what these 2 plugs are. This one goes to the harness on the center console. This is our USB. These 2 are for our wireless charger. And this one is for our cigarette lighter. But I have no clue what these 2 go to. There is a ground on one of them. I have the ground attached. If you guys know, please let me know. I'm curious. Other than that, we have the main frame part of it. I already have the shifter attached to that. After that is our nice carbon fiber piece with all of the buttons on it. Then we have a cup holder, a nice little plastic compartment on the back. Then we can put on our nice climate control piece before we finish up the center console. And that is our entire center console and our dash, besides our steering wheel and the trim pieces that go around the dash. It's starting to feel like home in here. So let's get those trim pieces on. There's one on each side of the dash, then there are pieces that run along the bottom of the door jamb along the carpet too. Alright, now it's time to start trimming the back half of the Supra, but just like the doors, we have to trim the hatch jamb as well. That way when we put the plastic pieces on, it can slide into the rubber gasket. So just like we did the door jambs, I'm just gonna quickly clean and put the rear hatch rubber gasket on. And now we can finally trim out the back half of the car. First, we gotta put a roadside kit back here by the fuse box. Then we can put in the biggest trim piece that goes back here. Then there's the piece that goes over the speakers. There's a tiny piece that goes over the B-pillar. Next up, we have to do the brace that goes across the back of the car, but we have to mimic what we just did on the other side first. So once the other side is caught up with the progress, we can bolt in the cross brace, and then we can finish off the middle section with the top two trim pieces, and then the back of the hatch gets one big trim piece. Okay, now I said both of the top trim pieces, but I almost got ahead of myself. We actually need to put the headliner on first. Now, those of you who have been around since the beginning of the Supra project when I was disassembling it might remember that I had to cut some wires off of the hatch to take it off. I had to do that because you cannot take those hatch wires off unless you remove the glass from the hatch. So I marked the wires and cut them, thinking that I was just going to splice them back together now. However, I've changed my mind. I don't feel right cutting the wires and splicing them when right now they're perfectly fine, and technically all I have to do is remove the glass in order to do it right. So if you guys haven't caught on yet, this is going to be a lot like the firewall situation where I wanted to do the dash, but first I had to do the brake pedal, but I couldn't do the brake pedal unless I put the master cylinder on, and I couldn't put the master cylinder on until I organized the wires, put in these two tubes, and put in the wiper motor. We are in that exact scenario again with the headliner. The headliner is next, but I can't put the headliner on because there's still wiring that I need to do for the hatch, and I couldn't put the hatch on because I need to cut the glass out. It's just one thing after another. When you're assembling cars, you got to do A before you can do B, and you got to do B before you can do C, and of course the last thing you want to do is A, B, or C. You just want to do D. Sorry, rant over. Let's continue with life. Now we need to bring the hatch all the way out from the corner, bring it out of hibernation, and give it a nice clean, and then cut the glass out. I'm really hoping this goes very well. The last thing I want to do is spend more money on rear hatch glass. Oh yeah. All right, hold up. Hold up. Oh, come on, just stay on here for a second. There's just something holding on here and here. And I finally cut it with the wire on the other side. Huh, just punched myself in the face. Well, we got the glass out. That's cool. We were so close. So close. It was just right here, and I pulled a little too hard. Well, add on to probably another, I don't know how much this glass is gonna be. Hopefully not $1,000. Okay, and here's the wire harness we cut originally. That one's out. I don't think we'll be using that one. It's a part of the new harness we bought. And the whole reason why we had to take the glass out is because I needed this harness. We have two plugs here. Both of these plug in underneath the headliner. So I didn't want to have to take the headliner off later just to plug these two in. So I'm gonna move the hatch out of the way, clean the glass, and then we can continue with the interior. And all of that work was just so we can put the headliner on and not have to take it off later. We need to fish these wires through, just like the other side here, plug them in, and then happy days, let's put on our headliner. Okay, well that was quite the start to the day. That was literally the first thing I did. I filmed,
I cleaned the glass of the hatch, and then I broke the glass of the hatch. Anyway, headliner time. Bad news with the headliner. Who would have thought? If you guys remember how I took the headliner out, I took it out like this through the door. The bad news is you can't do that with the center console in, and the center console is currently in. It does not fit. So that's the bad news. The good news is I don't have a front windshield and it fits through there. So got lucky this time. Next time headliner's going on first. But this time we got lucky. No front windshield. Let's go through there. Put the wires in the right spot. 2 clips on the front, 2 bolts on the back. After all this, the headliner, bro, the headliner doesn't want to stay up. It's broken. The other side went in. Just kidding, the other side popped out too. I might need a new headliner. Unless you guys can tell me some magic way to solve this issue here. Sadly, the only thing holding this headliner in is the rubber door gasket. And it got bent up pretty good from the curtain airbags exploding. So unless somebody in the comments can tell me a very good way to get this tucked up in the headliner pretty permanently, even with it pretty bent up, I'm gonna have to spend another $500 on a headliner. Now, unfortunately, what I'm doing here on YouTube doesn't quite make sense financially, hence why I keep telling you guys I'm in crippling credit card debt. It's because I am. I have no reason to lie to you about that. So far, I have not done any of the sponsorship opportunities that I've gotten. However, that changes today. The factory service manual that I've been using on the Subaru project that has the exact order in how to rebuild the engine, the torque specs, diagrams for torque patterns, diagrams for RTV, diagrams for O-rings. That factory service manual that I've been following was given to me by eManual Online. So if you go through the link in the description and use ShawnzeyRacing at checkout, you can get 22% off a factory service manual for your vehicle, and you'll be supporting me keeping all of these cars out of the scrapyard. So thank you, eManual Online, for giving me this opportunity. All right, I went and had dinner, a little bit of an emotional reset. Let's flip this puppy back around, finish off the interior strong. Sure, the glass broke. Sure, the headliner doesn't want to install very nicely, but that doesn't change the fact that we're almost going to have a completed Supra interior. So with a smile on my face, I'm going to clean these seats because they are disgusting. I probably said it already, but I'm going to say it again. Don't forget, this Supra sat with the windows down for 3 years. Water got in there, animals got in there, mold got in there, every little thing that nature could throw at it got in there. So we're going to start by vacuuming the crevices because there is a bunch of leaves in there. Wipe it down with the general purpose cleaner, get most of that dirt off. We're going to clean it with leather cleaner. Shoot, I might even have to do it 2 or 3 times per seat, but we're going to clean them very thoroughly before we put them in our Supra. And we have some very, very clean seats ready to be put in the car. I also cleaned up the bolts really well with the wire wheel because they sat in a waterlogged carpet for 3 years. So they were very rusty, corroded, grimy, just gross. So those are the nicest bolts I've ever seen. That being said, one of the most exciting parts of this video, let's get the seats in, starting with the passenger one. I have to be very careful not to scratch anything at this point. I don't want to scratch the dash. I don't want to scratch the center console. I don't want to scratch my fresh paint. But once we get it in, it should just be 4 bolts, a plug-in for the seat controls, and we can't forget the seat belt itself clips in on the side. After the passenger seat, we repeat the same thing for the driver's side. Slide it in, being very careful not to scratch anything. 4 bolts, 1 plug, 1 seat belt clip. All right, seats bolted in. Now they're plugged in and the seat belts are connected, but I only have the back 2 bolts connected for the seats because in order to do the front 2, we need to plug in the battery, move the seats back, and then we can bolt the front 2 in. But I'm not going to put the battery in quite yet because I want to wait until the steering wheel is in Don't ask me why, it's just I want the interior to be pretty much put together before I put the battery in. That being said, we're at the last major component of this interior, the steering wheel. The steering wheel should be pretty simple to install. We take off the tape that's holding the clock spring in place. There's 3 plugs that connect the steering wheel to the clock spring, 1 giant bolt that we're gonna ugga-dugga tight, and then a couple plugs for the airbag and the horn, and then that just clicks into place. And my God, we're almost done with this interior. It looks so good. There's like 3 things that I want to do. 1, I forgot a trim piece that goes behind the subwoofer cover. Super easy. We'll put that in real quick. 2, I want to connect the battery so we can move the seats back and get them actually bolted into the car. But let's talk about that quick. We're in a little bit of a unique situation where sure, the interior is put together, but the rest of the car is not. We need to really make sure that when we connect this battery, we're not going to fry anything. Now, I'm not saying what I'm about to tell you is foolproof. I have no clue what's going to happen when I connect this battery. But what I am going to do is look at all of the major power wires on the front of the car and make sure they're not touching anything. Not touching another power wire, not touching any other wire, not touching any metal. We have 1 that goes to the electric power steering. That's inside of a casing. That should be fine. We have 2 dangling right here, but they are well away from anything else. That should be fine. We have 2 smaller ones in this little cubby. They are not touching anything. And then we have 4, but they're also in a plug, so those should be okay too. So with that explained, this is kind of an at my own risk kind of thing. I'm not guaranteeing that we don't fry a fuse. Hopefully, pray to the God, we do not fry any modules. And our negative, make sure nothing starts on fire. And I don't know if we'll hear any noises. Oh, we definitely hear noises. I hear beeping. All right, let's get the seats bolted down. Okay, magic moment here. Let's see if our seats move. Oh, it might be a little grimy, but they move. All right, I hear a lot of crunching from the rails. Of course, I should have cleaned those before I put them in the car. Hopefully I don't have to take it out. And that's our seats bolted down. Now, one last touch to cover up the battery and finish off the back side. And now I want to see if anything lights up on the inside. All right, if I push start stop, what do we got? Oh, look at that. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of errors. Oh boy, look at that. Let's see if this works. Oh, it does. Look, I can scroll. This is so cool to see. Hood's open. Yeah, it is. Park and brake, drivetrain, refill coolant, emergency call, washer fluid, set time and date. We got a lot of issues with this car, don't we? My vehicle, driver profiles. Let's go. Let's change that name. This is now gonna be Shawnzey. Oh, hold on, I misspelled it. No! Shawnzey. Goodbye, Ahmed. We have Shawnzey now.
Now let's just take a few moments to appreciate the before and afters on a car that sat with the windows down for 3 whole years.
And now I'm going to quickly disconnect the battery before anything starts on fire. We have a lot of wiring yet to do. I appreciate each and every single one of you. The best way to support this channel is to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe so you can see when I assemble the entire rest of this car.